Welcome to TalkTickers. Today, we're really digging into Lucid Group's recent first quarter earnings call for 2025.
Yeah, we're aiming to pull out the key stuff, the strategic moves they talked about.
Basically get you up to speed on where they stand and where they might be heading in this whole EV race.
Exactly. Think of it as the condensed version, everything you really need to know from that call.
Okay, so let's jump right in. What's the big picture, the quick snapshot from this report?
Well, the main theme is definitely growth, alongside some pretty strategic moves for the future.
Okay.
We saw, significant year-over-year bumps in both deliveries and production. Financially, they seem solid, strong liquidity, and they're making real headway with the Gravity SUV and their core tech.
All right, good overview. Let's unpack that a bit, starting with the car's deliveries and production. Almost 60% jump in deliveries. 3,019 cars. That feels big.
It is. And it's actually their fifth quarter in a row setting a delivery record, so there's a clear trend there. They did flag a small temporary system hiccup in Saudi Arabia that held things back slightly, but they said that's fixed now.
Yeah.
And importantly, they had another 600 plus cars already on their way to Saudi at the end of the quarter. So those will hit the Q2 numbers.
Got it. So more to come. And it sounds like the Lucid Air itself is still doing well.
Oh, absolutely. Demand seems strong. U.S. News & World Report named it Best Luxury Electric Car again.
That's the fourth year, right?
Fourth year, yeah. Speaks volumes. And in the U.S. in Q1, it stayed the top EV seller in its category. Third best-selling sedan overall. Actually, in March, it was the best-selling vehicle, full stop, in its segment here. Beat out gas cars, too.
Wow. Okay. So the Air's holding its ground. Now, when everyone's watching the Gravity SUV, what did the call tell us about its rollout?
Yeah, lots of buzz around Gravity. The call definitely confirmed strong customer interest.
That New York event seemed to go well.
Extremely well. Over 3,000 visitors, huge social media engagement, really broad appeal.
And it's bringing in new people.
That's a key point. Over 3/4 of the Gravity pre-orders are from people new to Lucid.
Interesting. So potential for real market expansion.
Exactly. It's not just existing fans upgrading. It could genuinely grow their customer base quite a bit.
So what's the plan to keep that momentum building?
They talked about ramping up marketing significantly through 2025. There's a global ambassador partnership coming too.
Okay.
And crucially, they've actually started delivering the first limited Dream Edition Gravities. So the launch is underway.
Good, good. Beyond the cars themselves, Lucid often talks up its technology. Are other car makers taking notice?
Yes, definitely. They highlighted growing interest from, the big established OEMs.
In what specifically? The powertrain.
Powertrain hardware, their software systems. They said talks are happening at various stages.
The tariff situation is a factor.
Right. Tariffs are kind of the immediate focus for a lot of OEMs right now, which might slow things down a bit. But Lucid sounded optimistic about landing some tech deals eventually. There's also interest, they said, in using Lucid's U.S. manufacturing setup. Could be a capital-efficient way for others to build EVs.
And speaking of assets, they bought some nickel operations recently. Tell me about that.
Yeah, about $17 million plus taking on some leases. But the assets themselves are valued way higher, hundreds of millions.
Okay.
And it wasn't just the potential raw material access. The deal brought in over 250 experienced EV tech people. So it's talent and resources.
Got it. A double win. Then there's this partnership with KAUST, the university in Saudi Arabia. How does that fit in?
That seems focused on boosting their R&D, especially for autonomous driving and ADAS.
Right, the driver assistance stuff.
Exactly. KAUST gives them access to top-tier research facilities, talent, and crucially, supercomputing power.
For training the AI models.
Precisely. Training AI, advanced materials research, simulations, digital twins. It's a big tech accelerant.
So we might see faster progress on their self-driving tech?
That seems to be the goal. They also mentioned being in advanced talks with partners who view the Gravity as, the best platform out there for integrating advanced AV tech.
Focusing on level 2++ and L3?
Yeah, enhancing L2++ and moving towards L3 seems to be the immediate focus, potentially through collaborations.
Okay, let's switch to a big industry headache. Tariffs and supply chains. How's Lucid handling that?
Well, they acknowledge it's a global issue, right? The supply chain is complex. They estimated tariffs could hit their gross margin by maybe 8 to 15%.
Ouch.
Yeah, but they feel their U.S. production base and how vertically integrated they are gives them an edge.
So they're trying to bring more suppliers closer.
Definitely. They're actively working on localizing more, Mentioned the future Panasonic battery plant in Kansas, sourcing graphite in the U.S.
Makes sense.
And they're exploring other options too, like potential price adjustments or even splitting the supply chain somehow to manage risk.
All right, let's get into the financials then. Q1 revenue, $235 million, up 36% year over year. How does that break down?
Well, about $31.5 million of that was regulatory credits. The gross margin, while still negative, did improve quite a bit. Went from negative 134% last year to negative 97% this quarter.
Still a long way to go, but moving in the right direction.
Right. R&D spending was $251 million, and they expect that to climb as they work on the midsize car and the new Atlas powertrain.
Okay. At SG&A?
$212 million, but that had a one-off accounting item, a reversal. So that should look more normal going forward. Adjusted EBITDA landed at negative $563 million.
And how's their cash situation looking?
Pretty strong, actually. They ended Q1 with around $4.56 billion in cash and investments. Total liquidity is about $5.76 billion.
Okay, that's a healthy cushion.
It is. Inventory did go up to $471 million, but they said that's mainly due to ramping up Gravity production. CapEx for the quarter was $161 million.
So looking forward, what's the outlook? What are they guiding for 2025?
They're sticking with their production forecast for the year, around 20,000 vehicles.
Yeah.
And they project their current cash gives them enough runway into the second half of 2026. That's without counting any potential future money from Saudi Arabia.
Right.
CapEx for the whole year is expected to be roughly $1.4 to $1.5 billion. And the midsize platform is still on track for late 2026 production start.
Despite the supply chain headaches.
Yeah, though they did say they're constantly working on optimizing that supply chain, given all the economic and trade uncertainties out there.
Makes sense. The call had a Q&A too. Did anything particularly interesting come out of that?
Yeah, a few things. They were asked about speeding up the midsize platform.
Yeah.
Basically said no, late 2026 is firm. It's just too complex, especially now with tariffs. The nickel asset purchase might save some CapEx later, but the 2025 guidance is unchanged.
What about selling tech to others still pursuing that?
Yes, absolutely. Active talks are happening. But again, many OEMs are just focused on tariffs right now. Lucid did sound open to maybe even making components for other companies using their existing and new assets.
Another potential revenue stream. What about materials like rare earths? Any worries there?
They feel they're in a decent spot. Because they design and build so much in-house, they apparently use fewer rare earth elements than some competitors. Gives them flexibility if export curbs happen.
Okay. And the Gravity ramp up? Any sense of urgency?
Oh yeah, they stress the urgency. But said the timeline reflects doing it right, focusing on quality, not just speed. They expect the initial supply chain kinks for Gravity to iron out in Q2.
And production targets for 2025 are still achievable?
They believe so. Deliveries of the Dream Edition have started, and Gravity orders are apparently coming in really strong, stronger than the Air did initially for the same trim.
Good sign.
Yep. Gravity test drives are starting now too, and expect an update on their new Atlas drivetrain in the coming months.
So Gravity is really seen as the key growth driver now.
Pretty much. Air is doing well, but Gravity is expected to drive the volume and help lift the average selling price later this year.
Got it. Anything else from the Q&A? Capital raise?
Yeah, they mentioned using part of the recent capital raise to buy back some 2026 debt. Smart move. The KAUST partnership they see as a huge benefit, especially the computing power for AIDAS, without Lucid having to spend big money directly.
And they're not sacrificing the midsize platform for current issues?
No, they were clear.
Yeah.
Resources aren't being diverted from the midsize development. They did admit to some early software HUD glitches on Gravity.
Yeah.
Temporarily unbundling the HUD option to keep deliveries flowing.
Okay, pragmatic.
And ultimately, getting to break even, improving that gross margin, it all comes down to scaling production. The midsize car will be critical for absorbing those fixed costs down the line.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, that's a really thorough look at the earnings call. Let's shift gears to our This Is Not Financial Advice segment. Time for some wild but maybe plausible trade ideas. What's one brewing?
Okay, here's one. Playing off that Gravity excitement.
Yeah.
You see the strong early demand, the game changer talk.
Yeah.
So maybe a long position in Lucid itself, but, and this is key, with a really tight stop loss order set just under a key technical price level.
So betting big on Gravity's success, but with a safety net.
Exactly. The outrageous part is betting that those great reviews and early orders really do translate into massive, sustained sales, bucking any broader EV market slowdown or economic issues. It really relies on Gravity delivering on that hype.
Okay, high risk. Potentially high reward if gravity hits big. What's another angle, something a bit different?
Well, think about all that talk about OEM interest in Lucid's tech and manufacturing.
Right, the licensing and potential partnerships.
So here's idea number 2. You go long on a major legacy automaker, one of the big established names, and take a smaller long position in Lucid at the same time.
Interesting, hedging the bet slightly.
Kind of. The outrageous speculation here is that within, say, the next year and a half, one of these legacy giants announces a major deal with Lucid, a big tech license, a manufacturing partnership, maybe even an acquisition whisper.
Ah, so a catalyst that could lift both stocks.
Potentially, yeah. The legacy play gives you some diversification if things go sideways specifically for Lucid, but you still capture the upside if that big partnership materializes.
Two fascinating, definitely speculative ideas there. And just to reiterate, folks, this is absolutely not financial advice, just brainstorming based on the call. Always do your own research.
Always.
So that was our deep dive into the Lucid earnings call. We've covered the results, the strategies, what might be next. What was the biggest takeaway for you listening? What questions are still buzzing around?
Yeah, keep digging, stay curious. The more you look into these things, the more you understand.